one of the most inspiring people on television for a reason. I have to tell you, when I sat down with her, that's the word I kept thinking. Wow, she's so inspirational. Get ready to take it to the next step on your journey to success with Forbes. Enjoy her interview. Thank you so much for being here.
What a treat. I mean, we go back a long time.
We
back
do.
to Los Angeles.
I know. What was it? 8 years ago?
Yeah, my kids were little. They just turned 18, my twins. So I got them to 18. I must have done something right.
You're definitely doing a lot right.
Thank you.
Well, tell everyone about you.
Well, so one of the things that I think is interesting is being the ugly duckling. I know people look at me and go, oh, you look good. I'm like, yeah, thank you very much. But I started life as I actually had two beautiful parents. I think that really helped. But when I was 8 years old, I ran into a baseball bat and actually shattered my nose. And I grew up as a little girl with a very awkward, ugly nose. I sucked my thumb, so I had braces for 8 years. Imagine some guy put me in braces at 8, took them off at 16. And at some point, I had a tongue crusher, so I used to talk like this. I never did speech therapy. So there I am, I'm 8 years old in Long Island, New York, with frizzy hair. My hair looked like a triangle from the back. I was overweight because fast food had just come out. My mom was 260 pounds my whole life. I had a goofy nose, ugly face, and I was really smart. You know what that made me? Really lonely. No, seriously, I look at you and you're what I wanted to look like. I wanted to be pretty and blonde with straight hair. Marsha Brady was really popular with the little part in the middle. And when she got hit in the face with a football, she didn't go to the prom. Because somebody said to me, Forbes, how did you know you were ugly? I said, because I looked at Marsha Brady and I wasn't her. And I just looked awkward. And I was very, very, I used to dream a lot. I discovered that that's my superpower. I would go home and do my homework and watch television. And when I was growing up, TV was fantastic. TV was I Dream of Jeannie, she could make things happen, or it was Sabrina, so wiggle your nose and magic happened, and then I also wanted to be James Bond. It was a time when those kind of movies like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and James Bond, those were all coming out, and those were the guys, they all seemed to have a great, amazing life. At some point, there was a girl from U.N.C.L.E. Stephanie Powers had a moment of rock starness.
Definitely.
Yeah,
She was great.
And Emma Peel, she was also my role model, to live that exciting life, which my life was anything but. We had a very small house. My dad was a machinist. And when I was 15 years old, my beautiful dad got his hand caught in a machine and it ripped off the whole front of his hand. And so he spent 3 years in the hospital, 15 operations, and it devastated my entire family. During that time, my mom was actually held up in the house at gunpoint. My parents were in the gun club, and somebody realized we had guns in the house, and they took everything we had. And so I learned a lot of very strange lessons at a very early age about what it's like to be really ugly and really broke. Okay. My mom said at some point, we have no money for college. You're first in your class and no scholarships, and we don't know what to do with you. And she said one day, there's this pageant. You should enter it because there's a scholarship. And I'm like, Mom. She said, no, don't worry, it's not a beauty pageant. It's like, Mom, really? But somebody who's going to end up as Miss Teenage America with Bob Hope on NBC. My dad's doctor overheard all of this, and he said, you know what, we can fix her nose. And he actually offered me a surgery, fixed my nose. Literally over the weekend, I came back to school, and I have this photo of me looking really ugly and really kind of cute within 5 days. And I talk about the combination of wanting something really bad and a really good why. And my why was that I wanted to prove my family that I mattered, that they mattered. And I entered this competition wearing a hand-me-down bridesmaid's dress. My braces had just come off, my nose was cute, my hair had gotten cut. And I remember standing on the stage in the mall, because that's where the final part of this was. It took 3 weeks to get there. And there's this picture of me where I'm looking at the judges, and I'm like, and I can see, I'm like, this is my teeth, see? You can see teeth, and my cute nose. And I wanted it, and I could look at my parents, and when they called my name, it's like the world exploded. And for the first time, I realized that you could get what you wanted if you wanted it bad enough.
I have chills.
Yeah, and so that's been the architecture of everything I've ever done, is I have a tendency to dream something without asking, how do you do it? I went to Europe. I found the book Europe on $20 a day. And I said to my parents, I'm going to go see the world before I'm so famous that the paparazzi will be following me everywhere. My parents had never left the country. And the game plan was, I said, here's the book. I'm going to tear out every page when I see every place and come home when I have the cover. And my mom was freaking out. There were no cell phones. There was no internet. I just left with my dad's camera and a Walkman. I had 2 cassette tapes that I would turn over and over and over, and me and Barry Manilow were best friends by the end of this. But I saw the world, and I remember saying to my mom, I said, why do you want to do that? I said, because I have a vision when I'm 83 years old that I'm going to be sitting around telling my story to my grandkids and all these other kids, and it's the most fantastic story. And you know what, Mom? Right now I have nothing to talk about. So I set out to write the most fantastic story, and I think I have.
I love that story. I want to hear about what you do. There's so much more inside. Like, tell them how kind of what we met on and what you do. You have a crazy resume of lots and lots of things. So tell everybody.
I do. So, you know, it's funny. You don't know who you are growing up, because I didn't. I had a feeling I was somebody inside, but people looked at me and didn't see what I thought they should see. I got to college, and I'd always audition for the school plays. I don't know, were you in the high school plays?
Yes.
Yeah, you know where I was? I was chorus and townsperson number 3. I never had any lines, I never had a name, and I would always go look at the call board, and there I was at the very bottom. But I had this burning desire going, it'd be so cool to be, like, don't they see that I'm a star? They never did. And I got to college, and I was going to be a lawyer because I wanted to affect change. And then one day I realized, I woke up and I didn't know my congressman's name. And I didn't know anybody who knew their congressman's name. But they knew Jane Fonda. And I said, you know what, I think I should be famous. Because if you're famous, you can make a difference in the world. And senior year, I auditioned for As You Like It, Shakespeare's largest play, a female character, Rosalind. She spends 2.5 hours on stage. And when I auditioned, I go to the call board. I'm expecting to see my name at the very bottom, and there it's not there. And I thought, man, maybe I do suck. And I'm not kidding. And I said, well, who was the lucky girl who gets to play Rosalind? I got up there, and it's like, there's my name. Now, I had that moment, and I can just feel it like going, I think somebody made a mistake. I went to Professor David Richmond, and I said, can you tell me, like, why now? Senior year, I'm going to go off to be a lawyer. And he sat me down, and he said, you're my ideal Rosalind. He said, you are complicated, you have pathos, you have heart, you have depth way beyond your years, and I wouldn't dream of anyone else playing this role for me. And then he looked at me, and the cool thing about Professor David Richmond was he was 100% legally blind. He couldn't see all the things that everyone else had gotten so hung up on, whether it was the size of my thighs or my frizzy hair, whatever it was. And that instilled in me a sense of, you know, maybe I could do this. We did the play. It was a huge success. I called my parents and I said, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be a lawyer like I planned. I'm going to go off to New York. And they were like, we can't help you. I said, I know. And the funny thing about that was I got there, and I didn't have any idea where I was going to live or what I was going to do, but I was obsessed with people having more money than us. We grew up in a very small little house, and there was one giant mansion in my town. And I was right across the street from my orthodontist. So every week or every month I would see it. You could see it through the cypress trees, and it looked really big. Well, the crazy thing is when my dad got hurt, his hospital room overlooked that house. Now, my dad was in the hospital for almost 3 years. So I would look down at this major, big, brick red mansion with 2 chimneys and a circular driveway, and I thought, what is it like to live there? What do they do for Christmas? They have chimneys. We don't have a chimney. What, you know, even for Halloween, do they have whole candy bars that they give out? And I was obsessed with this notion of watching movies and seeing other people's life. I thought, I could do that. And I don't even know why I thought I could do that or I should do that. And I got to New York. I answered an ad for a social secretary for the Grace family. W.R. Grace, they were billionaires. They had old money. And I don't know that I knew what a social secretary was. I don't think Mrs. Grace knew either. And she thought I was adorable. And they didn't mind that I went off and I was on a soap opera at the same time. And they were okay with that. I was like, okay. And I got to sit with barons and earls and princes. And I got to see a whole nother world. And I took from it what I liked, and I didn't like some of it because it was, the women were a certain kind of woman. They were old money women. And the guys were kind of cool, so I hung out with the guys and thought, this is an interesting mix. I didn't know I expected that. And one day I'm in the car, Mrs. Grace turns to me and she says, can you get Louis Vuitton out of the trunk? And I'm like, who's in the trunk? And she looked at me and she said, oh, you'll learn. And I said, oh, I will. And that was my first exposure to what I dreamed was possible. And I've been on that path ever since, to create a life that was just what I wanted it to be, as opposed to what was given to me. What was given to me, though, was a great sense of morals and ethics and love. I had great parents, but I was definitely odd, and I knew that. And the problem with that is it took a long time for me to catch up with the fact that I didn't think I was good enough, that whole imposter syndrome. I mean, I got the lead in the first feature film I ever auditioned for. I'm sure you've seen it, Splatter University. But don't laugh at that, where the school colors, come on, where the school colors are blood red. And here's the crazy thing, the lead role in it, Julie Parker, and because of Facebook, I now realize how famous I am. Splatter has its own page. But back then, I had 2 rules in movies. No nudity, that was my big thing. And don't get involved with anything that you're not passionate about. I even ended up on Broadway with Christopher Reeve. And I have crazy stories about how did I do all that? In fact, and everything I've done has a crazy story. I did these things in spite of the fact that I still had kind of chunky thighs, and people made fun of my weight, and I had to go to Overeaters Anonymous while I'm on Broadway because I was like 20 pounds overweight. And so people kept instilling the fact that I wasn't good enough, even though I got things. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it sounds like you have 2 sides. You have the side where you're putting yourself in these dreams and believing that it's possible, but then all this self-doubt. So I don't understand how you did it. Explain to us how you combined those worlds. How could all this happen for you?
I just did it anyway. I actually don't understand it either. It's funny looking back on all this because there's a lot of amazing things. If you look at just technically, from being on Broadway to being on soap operas to starring in movies, I get to Los Angeles and there was an audition for the Laugh Factory. I've never been in a comedy club. I'm not that funny. I went to it on a Sunday. I was wearing a dress, carrying a pair of pants, and there's nobody there. It was like I waited because I was like, I don't even know why I want to do this, but I walked into the Laugh Factory and I said to the people, there were 2 people sitting at the bottom, I guess the judges, and I said, I have to go to the bathroom and put on pants. I can't be funny in a dress. And they said, get on stage. And I did, and I started talking. And the next thing I know, Jamie Masada of the Laugh Factory, who started Ellen DeGeneres, Jerry Seinfeld, Robin Williams, the Wayans brothers, you go on and on. He said, you're my host every Friday and Saturday night. I'm like, I'm what? And I was so nervous. No one said what you do. I'd never been in a comedy club before. And I memorized Rita Rudner's, from Cosmo magazine. She had a little funny blurb. I got on stage, my first audience, and I just did her thing. Jimmy's like, come here. I'm like, what? He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm being funny. He said, I didn't hire you to be funny. I hired you to host. He said, you get on stage without a thought in your head, ask somebody where they're from, and give me 10 minutes. I did that for 3 years. Now, why would I even do that? Why would I travel around? So in my 20s, again, I have weird ADD. I used to work for Club Med. I went to a Club Med, and I'm just living out my fantasies. I don't sing, but I was a great dancer. And so I get to Club Med, and the entertainment there is they actually lip sync, long before lip syncing was popular. And when I got there, they were doing a chorus line, and they were lip syncing it. And the girl starring in that little play was terrible. And so I went to the management. I said, can I work for you guys? I want to do that. And they're like, no. I said, well, how do you get to do that? Well, you go to New York, and you can apply. So I watched all that they were doing, and I went to New York, and I almost look at me as though, where did I get all this gumption? I walked into the Club Med office and said, hi, I'd like to talk to your head of entertainment. And they said, do you have an appointment? I said, no, but he's going to want to talk to me. I'm sitting in John Shelley's office. He's like, can I help you? I said, no, I think I can help you. I've been down at Club Med, and what you do is, it's kind of French, and I don't think the Americans liked it, and blah, 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 blah. He said, wow. He said, how long could you go away for? I'm like, excuse me? He said, yeah, I have a hosting position in Sonora Bay, Mexico. I said, I could do like 3 weeks. He said, great, you're hired. But then I get there, and apparently I had this weird fantasy that I wanted to be a game show host. I know, right? So, and I didn't have a mentor for any of this. And we all talk about mentors. I had like this weird mentor in my head, maybe from hearing enough television and movies, but there was this little voice that just kept going, keep going, keep going. So I get to Club Med, I'm 26 years old, and I said, hi, I'm here to be the head of entertainment, and I have this idea for a game show. I want you to create the set for Dating Game, Hollywood Squares, Price is Right, whatever the other game show. We had 5 game shows, Monday through Friday, from 4 to 5 o'clock, right before dinner. And they built the sets, and they did everything I said. And I'm like, that's interesting. They did everything I said. And I'm thinking, could somebody else, where's the reality cameras? This was long before that kind of TV. And now I'm hosting game shows. Well, the head of Club Med comes down and found out what this crazy girl is doing. He said, can we hire you? I said, no, I don't want to do this. He said, well, what can we do? I said, well, anytime I want to get on a plane, can I just do that and come down and tweak what you guys have going on? And for 10 years, I did that while I'm acting, whenever I got bored. And then I'm in New York, and I said, I want to go skiing. I've never been skiing. I couldn't afford to go skiing. I opened up the paper, and there's an audition for a thing called Ski View. These guys wanted a kind of Club Med bar party, and what they had done was they bought the billboards, you know, on lift towers? They created billboards so that when you're riding, you'd see, you know, Lipton Tea and Cuervo Tequila. And I did this, and for 10 years, I'm doing stand-up comedy at ski resorts. I skied Monday through Friday, and I did this on Saturday. I know, but I'm thinking in my own head that no one's ever going to find me. I'm in the middle of nowhere doing these ski shows. Well, if you keep putting enough money in the bank and the interest accrues, that's what I was doing in my career. One day, ESPN came to make a half-hour special out of this crazy thing that I was doing. It was a 3-on-3 co-ed snow volleyball game and a cardboard box game, and then I would go into the bar and be funny. That turned into me hosting the very first X Games. In 1995, they came and said, we want you. And I'm like, to do what? And they said, we have this piece of videotape, and you're outrageous and fun, and we're doing this thing with Stuart Scott called the Extreme Games. Here, you get to do this. Now, again, imposter syndrome, right? They literally sent me, I kept saying, where's the audition? They said, no, we're just giving you this job. Who does that? The next thing, there's a book of sports from street lugeing, BMX bike, half pipe, bungee jumping, strange sports, and 300 athletes. I know nothing about sports. I show up on this $10 million set in Fort Adams in Providence, Rhode Island with 2 binders thinking, somebody's going to fire me. They're going to find out that they hired the wrong girl. I have no idea what to do here. Here's the funny part of that. It was a live show, but I did get all the half-inch video, like the videotapes, but I never watched them until YouTube came out. Because every year, every 6 years, I did it for 6 years. When I finally watched it, I realized I was really good. I just didn't know it while I was doing it. So I moved to Los Angeles. I just want to be an actress, very happy to do that. And there's this little odd subculture going on when infomercials launched. And 2 things happened. One, I showed up to an audition right at the production group in Los Angeles, and there was a pen on a desk. And it said, sell me this pen right to the camera. And I thought, I don't know how to sell anything. I thought it was kind of a joke. I picked up the pen. I feel very Wolf of Wall Street, but this is my story. And I looked in the camera and I said, you know, it's a funny thing about pens. My mom, when I was in college, used to write me all these handwritten notes. And I saved all of them, like 2.5 inches thick. And I realized a pen like this can reach out and touch somebody's heart. Well, Jake of Body by Jake comes out from behind the camera, says, you're going to make me a lot of money. I'm like, okay. And that's when this whole notion of me creating pitches started. He created a thing called the Cable Health Club, which turned into Fit TV, which was on for 5 years. And he had me pitch every single health and wellness product that came in. I would write the pitches, then I would do it live to camera on set. I sold 1,500 different fitness products. He sold the network to Fox for $500 million. And I was just doing this pitch thing. I didn't even know what it was I was doing. And all my actor friends were like, oh, you're selling crap on TV. I'm like, you're waitressing and I'm making a ton of money right now. And then QVC and HSN came out and I started pitching. I would just show up on camera, talk about what I loved. Innately, what I seem to know is the benefits versus the features of a product. Most people would look at a pen and say, oh, it feels good in your hand. It's got black ink. It sells for $1.99. I magically created why you would want this pen. And that's how I sold everything. We created the genre of selling fitness products. Nobody was doing this. QVC hadn't started yet. And I know, people go, well, how come I don't know this about you? Well, there was no social media out then. And PR was hard to do, and it's kind of funny. I've done all of this. And then infomercials in 1991 happened. I show up. I was terrible at commercials. Did you do commercials?
I did do commercials.
Commercials like, hi, this tastes good. Oh, I can't be phony. And one day I show up, and there's an entire like 6-page script to this commercial. And I read it and I thought, this is different. And I grabbed a guy in the waiting room. His name was Robin Letvinchuk. He was this moppy, blonde-haired weathercaster out of Canada. I said, come here for a second. I said, I think this is not what we think it is. I said, I don't think they care about the words. They care about the relationship. We went in, blew them out of the water. We got the job together, and it was one of the first infomercials ever for a thing called QMI. It was an oil additive. I interviewed Bobby Unser, and it was massively, I mean, like, it made so much money. And the next thing you know, I've done 192 of those. I got to work with Jack LaLanne and George Foreman and Billy Mays.
192 infomercials?
I know, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I could do 5 to 50 of them in a year.
Wow.
It's a day's work. It's crazy. And the crazy part about it is when I got really good at the finance part, I said, you're going to give me a royalty for every product sold. So not only did I make a lot of money for the day we were there, but I would sit home and get checks and checks. My Jack LaLanne power juicer, in 8 years that it was on air, grossed $1 billion.
Wow.
I know, right?
Wow. Wow. So you've mentioned something really fascinating. Features versus benefits. Will you teach us that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Well, there's two things. Features versus benefits is kind of obvious. So if I have a product, what's the feature? It's pink. Oh, that means it's something I want to play with. It fits in your pocket. That means it's fun to carry around. People get those things confused all the time. But the bigger lesson is, as a salesperson, as a pitcher, stop telling people what they need. You don't need the new hair cream. You don't need the new, that's what people do all the time. Oh my God, that's where MLMs go wrong. You need this and you need that. Oh, Christi, you need the new vitamin. No, that's not why you buy something. We all want to buy. We love to buy. But we only want what we want. So my job is to get you to want it, not to tell you that you need it. You do that, you close deals all over the place.
Okay, give me an example. How do you get me to want it?
Well, funny you should ask. Okay, so I have a crazy little fitness product here, right?
Yes.
Oh, by the way, I created this, invented this, and went through hell to get it out to the market and sold a couple of million of these. And I'll tell you how I sold 64,000 in 24 hours.
Perfect.
Yeah. But if I were to hold this right here, I would say, oh, Christi, you're wearing a sleeveless. You really need to have tight, toned arms, right? You're going to love this. You're going to do it everywhere. I'm in the National Fitness Hall of Fame, blah, 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 blah. Do you want it? Not really.
Yeah.
Okay, watch this. Christi, take your arm like this. Feel it right here underneath. So if it gets a little saggy at all, would you like to be able to tighten and tone that in just 5 minutes?
Yes.
Bingo. I got a yes out of you. I got you to want it, right? You don't even know what it is. You said yes. And that is the essence of what I do. Give me your thumbs. I'll show you something crazy. Okay, so here, put this here, and I want you to pull, and you go 10, 9. Look at that. Oh, and look at your arms
so
right there.
Fun.
I know. Now, don't let it sag. I know. It's the craziest thing in the world. This is based on an old Chinese toy, and it's unlike a resistance band. It's unlike a dumbbell. It rotates, it spins at 125,000 RPM. You know what that means to you and I? Is that this gets tight, your abs get tight, everything changes, your posture is awesome, and you can do it on a Zoom call. Can't do that with a stand-up desk or a treadmill, can you?
Look at it, just flows out of you. Okay, break it down. Break it down if we're trying to sell somebody. How do we start?
Number one, stop selling somebody. I don't need to sell you anything. There's 5 components to what I do. I talk about relatability factors, springboard story, the hub, assumptions, and the grid. So the first thing I'm going to do, if you were to pitch, here, so there's a water bottle. Pitch that to me.
Oh. Okay, let me go on your example.
Okay.
Wow, Forbes, swallow. It looks like you're kind of
Now
dry.
you're playing me, but that's not what you would have done by yourself.
No.
Right. What you would have done is you would have said,
It's purple
Right.
and looks refreshing. Would you like some?
that's what most people do. They start with the feature. It's purple, it's refreshing, but that's not it at all. So start with, now hang on. Start with the relatability factor. Start with the fact that, did you grow up with money or no money?
Middle class.
All right, so it makes no difference, by the way. It's actually relatable. So if I grew up with no money at all, I would say, wow, you know what? Here, so it's a little expensive, but I grew up with no money. We would always throw these out. This one is made to last a lifetime. Or if my relatability factor was I came up with a lot of money, hey, you know what? I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. This is the best of the best.
Oh, so you start talking about yourself and how you relate to the product.
Right.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Second thing has to do with story. So most people never do this. I don't know why they don't. To me, it's so obvious. So this is a handheld fitness product, right? My mom, when I was growing up, was overweight. She was 260 pounds my whole life. When I could finally afford afford to buy her a membership to a gym because I just wanted to save my mom. She had big ankles and diabetes, and it wasn't her fault. She just didn't know, and she hated exercise. But I got her a membership to a gym. I get her to the front door of the gym. We're going in, and she says, I can't. I said, come on, Mom, let's go. She said, I can't. What do you mean you can't? I said, come on. And she started to cry. And she said, look, I can't go in there. They all know what they're doing. I feel uncomfortable. I don't wear the right clothes. There's men in there that I'm going home. And I stood there for a minute and I thought, wow, she's right. She doesn't really belong in there. But what if I devoted a lot of my time and energy to create home-based products so that nobody suffered in their body again? That's the genesis of Spin Gym. Did I just touch your heart?
Yes.
Turns out it actually is a true story. But that story and a springboard story is the thing that you don't want to tell other people. It's that story that only you have. So if you were going to pitch me a product, what were you like growing up? Were you affable? Were you not affable? Were you social?
I was social, yeah.
Okay. So if you were pitching a product, you say, you know what?
If I was pitching Spin Gym, my sister has always struggled with her weight.
Oh, there you go.
And my dad used to say, Carrie, and make fun of her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so same story. It would matter a lot to me if I could help my sister and give her something that could make her feel confident and healthy. Yeah.
Do you see how you just brought the tone of this conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, next thing is really important that nobody thinks to do either. When you're on a camera and you're pitching to somebody, who are you talking to?
This audience.
That's such the wrong answer.
I know. I already know. I did it for you.
I know, no, and I love that. But that's what everyone thinks. They're talking to, and when you do that, you're talking to the audience and you sound like a pitch person. But the truth is there is no audience. There's only one person with one set of ears ever listening to you. So as we do this conversation, my hope is that there's a woman out there who says, wow, if she could do this, I could too. If she thought that she was ugly and she did it anyway, I understand that. If she grew up with no money, maybe that means I have a shot. And so what I'm doing right now is spending a lot of my time and energy motivating other people because I didn't really have a role model.
I'm going to stop you there because something big just happened to you, and you have this burning desire to bring women to the forefront.
From that moment when David Richmond said all those things about me, I've carried that with me that you're a little bit special. I don't know if that's true or not. I think everybody's special in their own way. It's taken me a long time to figure out what special means for me. And part of my special is just you keep going. You get kicked down, you get hurt. I've gone through some terrible things. I lost both my parents within a year, and I raised a little boy from South Central with my ex-husband who was a little blacker than our tops. And I learned a lot about culture. He was the part of the Big Brother, Little Brother program. Every weekend, Dexter was part of my life, lived at my house, went on every vacation, was best man at my wedding. And 6 months after I gave birth to my twins, he was walking from a haircut to church. And a kid who didn't have a mentor, didn't have a belief that life could be better, but wanted to get into a gang, walked up behind Dexter and shot him 10 times in the back and left him for dead right on the sidewalk. I'll tell you, that changes you. That gives you a sense of that you got to keep going, that there's people that need to know that life doesn't have to be the way your culture, your surrounding says it is. I always told Dexter that he could be anything he wanted to be. You know what really stinks? He never saw Obama become president. I would have loved to have that expression on his face because he's like, oh, he had prejudices about how people are. And I'm like, no, that's not how it has to be, and not if you don't want it to be. And he didn't quite believe that. I'm committed to letting people know that in the middle of the word belief, you know what lives right in the middle of a belief? The lie, L-I-E. It's a lie that you tell yourself. I don't care what you believe, what I believe, we're both wrong, or we're both right. It's people who stand there and tell you, I'm right, that's like, ooh, don't do that. We make up beliefs, and you can change beliefs. You have limiting beliefs. How did you start creating beliefs in the first place? Your surrounding, your education. I've shattered my beliefs. I realized that you can manifest anything that you want. That is a crazy way to live your life. And when I started to realize that I would think something and it would come true. I'm looking at the house that I'm in. I always wanted to be in a house that had a built-in pool No, because when I grew up, we had a little plastic pool, but our next door neighbors had a nice built-in. I thought, oh, rich people have built-in pools. Every house I've ever had has had a built-in pool. Why? Because I wanted it. And I figured out how to make that happen.
And that goes into when you were thinking of all the motivational speakers.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So I've always dreamed of, from Barbara Walters on, the whole newscaster thing, not quite my jam. But one day I heard a live speech from stage and I was floored. I was an actress, I've done theater, but I'd never heard someone say the words and like pierce my heart with things that mattered. I thought, what is this thing that they're doing? It's not like debate class. There's this public speaking thing, and I heard Les Brown and Sharon Lechter and Zig Ziglar, and I was like, and then Tony Robbins. I thought, wait, I want to do this. And then I realized I have nothing to talk about and no skills to do it, but I still want to do it. And whenever I decide that, I just dig deep. I start doing research. I start figuring out what to do. And nowadays, with YouTube, it's easy. Back then, not so easy. You had to get yourself to seminars. You had to worm your way backstage. You had to interview people to figure out, how did you do what you're doing? And I did meet Les Brown very early on in my career. And that man is going to be hungry. I'm like, ooh, what is it? Where does that come from? Like, you're saying things that matter. Remember when I go back all the way, I wanted to be a politician because I wanted to affect change? Mm-hmm. I finally saw the golden nugget going, you could affect change on stage to a lot of people if you do this. Terrifying to get up on stage and actually talk. Well, I worked at it long and hard. I've done a lot of crazy speeches. And I kept building and building and building. A couple of years ago, I was given an opportunity to walk on stage in front of 10,000 people. And there's a moment that changes your entire life when you do that. And again, it's funny because that videotape I have, you don't know who you are inside of you, but when you watch yourself on video, you're like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I was going to wear some very conservative dress and kind of an appropriate thing. There were a lot of men on that stage. And the reason I got that was because I was a woman. And I said, you guys don't have enough women. And then I went to an audition, I went to a rehearsal in this kind of fun, sexy Beyonce thing. And I think my daughter, who's amazing, said to me, Mom, you should wear that. I'm like, oh, no, this is really sexy and really out there. And she said, you should wear that. And there is a moment when I walk out on stage and I put my hands up and I'm like in this outfit, and it's like, I've had women come up to me going, that moment changed my life. What? That moment when you were empowered. What?
There's something there that you need to tell women, that it's about what your daughter said to you. Own it. Like, I felt that energy when you go like this. I could feel that in you. It's like you're real, it's like truth.
They actually made a little rap song about it. It says, I'm Forbes Riley. And it was my isms, it's like, you get what you tolerate, you get what you tolerate. Life happens for you, not to you. And it's like, wow, those are things that come out of my heart. For a long time, I've been saying, and I've been obsessed with this idea, that speakers were men, that motivational speakers were men. You had Zig Ziglar, you had
Tony Robbins,
Dale Carnegie, Gary Vee, Grant Cardone. I can go down the list. You got Lewis Howes, you got all these male, Les Brown, Deepak Chopra. It's like, okay, I got all the men. Name me the motivational speaking woman. No, come on, you have all of these men. You can't have no. And then I would hear Oprah. Well, and Oprah's motivational, but she's also a talk show host. That's not really her thing. And the thing about Oprah, as much as I love her, she's not a mom. Okay, how many dogs you got? It's very different when you're a mom. I've been a mom of twins since I was 42. And when you're a mom, your heart is always somewhere else. So, but is that the reason? Or is the reason, what do we wear on stage? Do we wear a suit? We look kind of buttoned up. Do we wear something too sexy? We're too, what is the thing that a woman wears? When Mel Robbins gets on stage, and she's certainly a hero of mine, she wears sneakers with her dress. I love that. And I said, you could do this. And I kept in the back of my head going, you could do this, you could do this. Well, 3 weeks ago, I get a call saying, hey, we heard you on this new app, Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse is interesting because you don't have to wear makeup. And this is the big thing for me, men versus women, okay? Forget about what you wear on stage. Like if you wear 6-inch high heels, at the end of the day, my back is so jacked. Men don't have to do that. Tony Robbins, love him, get out there in a pair of shorts and sneakers, do rah-rah. How long does it take you and I to do our hair, our makeup, our lashes, our nails? It's great, an hour a day. If it takes you an hour a day all year, do you know what? You have 400 hours less than a man.
I don't think it has anything to do with what you're wearing on stage or your makeup.
Okay, keep going, come on.
There is something so much bigger.
Well, at the end of the day, there is.
What is that?
One, it stopped talking like a girl. You know, it's funny. I don't like when people say, "Oh, you run like a girl." Well, that's because sometimes girls run like girls.
Don't
But
no.
girls
I
just need
think
to
you're.
go
I
ahead,
think
what?
you're breaking a barrier. Tell us what happened.
All right.
And then I'll tell you what I think.
So I looked at the biggest stages there and thought one day you could get there. And I have this notion about Forbesing it, about manifesting it, especially when no one else thinks it's possible. And I can remember in school, people would say, you know, you're not world class. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean to be the best at something? And so I created my own name for it. I call it, What Have You Forbes Lately? I wrote a whole entire book about this because this word means it's not a dream, it's not a wish, it's actually making it happen. And so 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a woman, Dinah, who said, I've been listening to you, and you're what we're looking for. And I'm going to put you on the biggest stage. There's 100,000 people going to listen to what you have to say. And the stage is Deepak Chopra, Les Brown, Jack Canfield, and Damon John. And I'm standing in the middle of it. And I will tell you, a couple of days ago, I looked at the photo of me in the middle, and somebody said, they look like your backup singers. I'm thinking,
They do. But that's when you told me that story,
yeah.
that's what it is. Women can't see themselves on stage because it's not happening yet. And so you're the first one.
You make me cry.
No, it's true. We can follow you because we see you up on stage and you did it. And so now you've opened the door to someone at home saying, I can do this too.
You know, the funny thing is that is the dream. I've had some amazing moments. I went back to the house I grew up in. I was there for 40 years. Both my parents passed away, and my sister sold the house. I went back, and it turns out the same couple is living there. And I knocked on their door, which is a weird thing to do. And they invited me back into the kitchen. And I'm standing in the kitchen where I grew up my entire life. And they had an 11-year-old daughter. And she said, could you talk to her? She's being bullied in school. She wants to believe in herself, but she just doesn't. And I'm standing in my kitchen, like I've almost bent time around, talking to me in the past. We always joke about, what would you say if you could talk to your younger self? And I did.
What did you say to her?
I said, you're going to have the craziest ride. And it's okay if nobody believes in you. Because look at me, I was ugly at your age. I showed her a picture. I said, I look kind of deformed at your age. And look, do you respect me? Do you see what I've become? I'm going to tell you that you are the sum of the obstacles that you overcome. If you had a really easy life, it won't be any fun. We get on stage and talk about how we went from zero to nothing. My daughter, God bless her, who's been with me to all my speeches and to all of these things, she said, Mom, how come everyone who gets on stage says these horrible stories like they lived in a car or they had no money? I said, Kenny, because it's the journey. It's not the destination. If you wake up and you've been left $1 million, good for you, that's nice. But if you struggled and worked for it and got there, and there was a moment, I'll tell you what, you want to talk about building character? The only way to build character is to go through tragedy. Dealing with Dexter. My little spin gym, there was a time when US Customs called me. It's hard to get enough money to do this, by the way. I launched this product on a TV series. I was very male run. And oh yeah, you were on a reality show too. Was reality for you?
Actually, mine was.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was a little forced. I worked for 5 months on the show, and when they edited it together, they didn't say things to make me look good. They went quite the opposite. They went out of their way to prove that a girl couldn't do a successful business like this. Okay, I woke up the next morning, Spin Gym was the #1 search word in the country, Forbes Riley was #3. And my ex-husband looked at me and said, wow, what are you gonna do now? And I said, I'm gonna sell Spin Gyms. He said, but nobody thinks it's going to work. And I said, they're wrong. He said, they can't all be wrong. I said, but they are. I said, you don't understand. I know this. I've spent my whole life doing this, and this moment, I'm going to push all my chips in. And I had no reason to. I mortgaged my house, my kids' education, and I said, I'm going to do this. And I woke up every morning with the FU School of Business, and I said, and every day it was this energy to prove them wrong, and I'm so glad that I did that, or I wouldn't have had that fire underneath me. I remember the day when we launched on home shopping and sold 10,000 our first day. I remember the day during a Today special, we sold 64,000 units. This little girl who came from no money got a check in her hand for $1.2 million for 24 hours worth of work. Now, it's not really 24 hours. It's never as easy as it looks. But I can remember how, and my parents were gone, which is so sad because I'm like, I wanted to show them that I did this. And the funny thing is, when you hold that kind of a check in your hand after all I've been through, I didn't win the lottery. It's like, oh, I'm going to go buy a car. It's like, I'm going to invest this back into what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure that my kids do have a college fund. And I'm going to set up the rest of my life so I can help other people, because this feels so gratifying. I worked so hard. And then US Customs called and said, there's something wrong with the container of these 22,000 I'd ordered. That means I'd written a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars. When you come from my world, writing a check like that, that's an impossible thing. That's like more money than my parents spent on their house that they paid off for 30 years. And it was funny, there was no real justification. They x-rayed the product, said, oh, there's a lot of metal here. I said, okay, that was approved. Then they said, well, who's got the rights to these photos? I said, and it was over Christmas to New Year's. And I was getting railroaded. And it was weird that all of a sudden, somebody thought to push my back up against a wall. And I said, you're not gonna, no, this is gonna, I'm gonna, you know, one of my principles is begin with the end in mind. What do you want to have happen? And then just make it happen. And I said, this product is gonna be fine. Well, unbelievable. They charged $2,000 a day just to keep it in their warehouse. And so now the money is racking up. And then they said, well, there's a little trademark infringement on your DVD. So what are you talking about? They said, well, there's a little thing that says DVD with a circle on it. I said, I don't even know why that's there. And I said, what do I do about it? And they said, well, you need the rights for it. So I called a guy over in Japan who owns the rights to that little teeny trademark. And he said, that's fine. Just pay me a couple of pennies. There's 44,000 of those. And I said, okay. US Customs then said, oh, no, that's not what we meant. You can't do it after the fact. You have to throw out the DVDs. I ultimately got the rights to cross out the little thing on the DVD 44,000 times. And I hired a crew from Craigslist with a big black magic marker and a box cutter. And we went through 22,000, which is like from here way out there. And we had 6 days to do it. And I remember thinking, this is insane. Why is this happening? You know why? Because somewhere in the universe said, we're going to push you to the max. See how bad you want this. And when you're willing to go to the end, and I kept hearing Rocky in my head, I kept hearing it's not how many times you get hit, it's how many times you get hit and you get back up. And I thought, wow. And if you feel that way in the middle of a tragedy, you do keep going. If you succumb to it, you die. And I'm not dying, not yet. I got way too much to live for.
Yes, you do. The millionaire within her. What does that mean to you?
It means that you've committed to a level of excellence inside of yourself when no one else thinks it's possible. There was a time when you'd be looked at as a girl, and you're supposed to marry somebody rich, somebody who's supposed to take care of you. I never felt that. And my dad, God rest his soul, he had this faith in me. And I remember thinking, he was a magician, he was a dreamer, and I grew up in a magical world where anything was possible. And I'm not kidding. My dad created a Batmobile out of half a garbage can, a lawnmower engine, and paper mache. So I was always looked at as this crazy, odd family, so I don't mind people not thinking I fit in. And if you commit to an idea and you get enough people around you to believe it, I call it dream it, believe it, and achieve it. Create in your mind something that you want, because the money comes. This is a really funny thing. I said, you want to be a millionaire? It's so easy. You go outside, you ask 1 million people for $1. You're a millionaire. Oh, wait, that's too complicated? How about you ask 100,000 people for $10? Now you're a millionaire. And people will say to me, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, then you don't want it bad enough, because you can make money in your sleep doing this. I now teach people how to change the way they speak, and money falls out of the sky. I know it's crazy, right? I teach people to stop saying certain words. Stop saying, I don't know. Here's the crazy thing. I don't care what you know and what you don't know. And neither does the universe. Remember when your son was little? Did he say, Mom, I'm crawling, I don't know, I keep falling down, I don't know how to do this walking thing, it's too hard, I don't want to walk, I'll just crawl. I think if entrepreneurs were babies, we'd still be in diapers and on our knees. But we don't do that when we're little. We just keep moving forward. So I honestly keep thinking that if you stop saying, I don't know, because when you say, I don't know, it closes every door of possibility. Just sit there and figure it out. And magical things happen when you stop saying that. The second thing, and in my tribe, and I do have a crazy tribe of students and clients and people that I teach this pitching thing to, because if you can get your idea out to someone else, you get money. And I don't care if your idea is a product, a service, a business, it doesn't matter. If you can't articulate it, you don't get it. You don't get what you want. In fact, I call it the Grubhub theory. Ever call Grubhub? Hey, Grubhub, yeah, what do you want? I'm hungry. That's nice, what do you want? Something to eat? That's nice, what do you want? I want, and they hang up on you. If you call Grubhub and say, hey, what do you want? want a Caesar salad, extra chicken, croutons on the side. Bam, at your door, 20 minutes later, is Caesar salad, extra chicken, croutons on the side. How did they know? Because you told them what you wanted. So I often ask people, so what do you want, Miss Christi?
I want this series to touch lives of women at home.
What do you want?
I want to have one woman changed by your story.
What do you want?
I just told you what I wanted.
What do you want? This is the game that I play with people.
Like to go deeper and go deeper.
Because that's what you think you want. Why are you doing this interview?
Because hearing you changes me.
Why is that important to you?
Because I was at a lost, scared place where I needed help. And I needed to hear women like you.
And that is why you're doing what you're doing.
100%.
And that is how you got this whole entire thing to happen, because it matters so much to you. If it didn't matter, this wouldn't have happened.
Matters a lot.
Right, and I feel a little bit of pain in that. Is it because women are not being talked to? Is that the problem?
We need to see more strong, powerful women showing us the way, showing us that we're worthy, even just because you exist. Just because you exist, you're worthy and you deserve all of your dreams. And if a dream's in your heart, it's for you to have.
And that's because somebody told you that you were not enough, didn't they?
Yeah.
And nobody gets to do that. You know, in the work that I've been doing, the really crazy part is I didn't know that so many women and men have been abused as little boys and girls and had their voice taken away. And I've made a very strong commitment to helping those people find their voice, find their passion, and live a fulfilled life. Because the crazy thing is, I didn't know this, but it's like 80% of the students who come to me. Well, that means that 8 out of every 10 people that you're looking at has got a deep, dark secret. Doesn't feel like they're worthy, doesn't feel like they're enough. And so you get involved in a relationship with one of those people, and it gets destructive, or they drink, or they do things to themselves that are destructive, because there is no education, there is no system to shift this. And I'm wildly passionate about this. I don't think therapy is the thing. I don't care how you feel about it. Let's go back into your trauma and just change it. And so part of what I've been very committed to, when I discovered that there's a thing in your head called a brain, and that's weird, well, but your brain is the only organ to name itself. It seems kind of odd, isn't it? It makes all kind of decisions, and it runs your whole, in fact, I look at it like it's the CEO of your body. But here's the question. Remember when you were pregnant with your son? Did you actually make any part of him? Did you spend any time consciously thinking about that? Did you grow your hair? You didn't do any of those things, right? So there's another part of your existence that did take care of all of that we totally negate. And you'll hear it when people say, oh, I'm a klutz, or I don't know how to do this, or I'm this. Actually, I think of your upstairs as the CEO, like where you and I are talking, but there's a downstairs that's making our digestion happen. What if you actually look at your right hand for a second, it's a crazy thing, and imagine that you're a little foreman inside of you. The little person who takes care of all those things when you're sleeping, and say thank you. Say thank you for taking care of me. Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry that I told you that you were crappy and that you weren't enough, or that you're nervous. Because as soon as you say to that guy, I'm nervous, hey, that's okay, she's nervous. Yeah, get some sweat, get some cortisol going. Okay, she says she's nervous, let's pump it. That's what kind of happens. You ever been in a scary situation and decide that you're not nervous? Right. Oh, okay, wait, no, she's got this one. Okay, no, everybody calm down. No sweat, not yet. And this conversation is miraculous. All of a sudden you have a little bit more control, but you're nicer to you. You're nicer to how you talk to the world. And this is a story that I don't think people realize, especially as you're raising kids. Lucky enough, I had these 2 beautiful little twins, boy and a girl. They come to me one day and say, Mom, how does it, I get a cut and it goes away overnight? And I'm a lovely storyteller. I love telling stories that have points, right? And they don't teach these things in school. I said, that's easy. I said, because there's little guys inside of you. They look like Bob the Builder with little yellow hats and lights, and they have a cup out for water. And every night you got to go home, fill it with water, go to sleep. They wake up and they start doing their job. But if you don't drink water, if you drink juice or soda, they don't do their job, and the cut stays there, and you don't look so good, and you look tired. Oh, and by the way, if you feed them too much sugar, they stay asleep, and you're just going to get fatter and fatter. Well, this backfired once. My daughter looked at somebody who was a little heavy and said, Mom, I think all of her guys are sleeping. My daughter's 18. A couple of months ago, she comes to me. She's with a group of her friends, and she said, Mom, what color? It was yellow, right? The hats that the little guys wear? I said, Kenny, I told that to you 14 years ago. That's in your head? And if you ask my daughter what she drinks, she only drinks water. So then I want you to think, if that little story stayed in her brain for all of these years, what does all the violence that we see on TV, all the bad self-talk, all the parents telling you that you're not enough, what does that do to your brain? It makes you think that you're not good enough. And then you act out in these ways that are destructive. I don't find enough places where we uplift each other. As women, as people, as kids. My daughter said, and I'm just going to quote her because she's changed my whole life. She has this perspective, and she said the other day, Mommy, I think I do a lot of what I do because I want you to be happy. That makes me wake up every morning with a renewed sense because I love doing this and I want women to be touched, but I know that I've touched her and I watch her touch other people. And that's been very rewarding. Just leaving a little bit of a legacy for the next generation.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing all your stories.
You are very welcome.
Did you know Forbes is a National Fitness Hall of Fame inductee? I was blown away by her energy. I learned how much more we can do when we include fitness in our financial strategy.